Children, we are learning the lesson all summer in a day. We stopped there in page number 111. We'll continue that today. We saw that Margaret was hated by the whole class. It is because she was a little different. She came from earth and she remembers the brightness of the sun and the warmth of the sun, and she talked many things about sun, and which was not known to the children of that classroom. And as she is of not the same like those children, so alike she was not like of those children, so they were hating that. Here the writer wants to say that how people who are little different will be treated on this wicked world. So let's go to the other part of the story. Get away, the boy gave her another push. What are you doing? What are you waiting for? So the boy is Williams, who was literally hating her and didn't want her to do anything. And once he pushed, and she was so stern and she didn't bother, and she was continuing her work. Here again, the other day also, he was pushing her and questioning her that, what are you waiting for? Why do you want to see? What do you want to see? Then, for the first time, she turned and looked at him. Last time, she didn't do anything, she didn't bother, she just ignored him. Now, again and again, he was doing the same, pushing her and bullying her and talking ill of her and looking down at her, and all these things was going on. So this time she turned and looked at him, and what she was waiting for was in her eyes. So she expressed why she is standing there through her eyes. So in her eyes, he could read. Well, don't wait around here, cried the boy savagely. You won't see anything. So the way she expressed that, I'm also waiting here to see the sun. And he understood, and he just pushed her and savagely means wildly and in an indecent way he behaved, and he said that you won't see anything here, go. Her lips moved, she started saying something. Nothing, he cried. So she started saying something, but he was not listening her. He didn't want her to say anything. So he said that nothing, go away from here. It was all a joke, wasn't it? He turned to the other children. So he was talking to other people to get the support. So it's all a joke, wasn't it? Nothing is happening today, is it? They all blinked at him and then, understanding, laughed and shook their heads. So he won the hearts of the other students, and nothing is happening here. Why she is waiting here, like that he spoke, and everyone accepted his talk. Oh, but Margot, whispered, her eyes helpless. So she wanted to say the reason why they are all waiting, and she is also waiting. And she become helpless. But this is the day the scientists predict. They say they know the sun. So she wanted to say that children that why they are waiting, and she is also waiting because this is the day the sun will be seen, and the scientists have predicted this. Today we are waiting here to see the sun. All a joke, said the boy. So it's all joke, nothing is going to happen. And seized her roughly. So stopped her and didn't want her to say more or come forward and look into that through that window, and wanted to. Wow, he wanted her to move away from her. Hey, everyone, let's put her in closet before the teacher comes. So his hatred, once he pushed, twice he pushed, and he through words, now every hatred in action. So he wanted to put her in the closet. Here the writer using the word closet just to shut the things, the people who stand for thing which is right, or people who are not going with the society, who stands for the thing which is true, or such people are be suppressed or put or shut in such a thing. That means their mouths are shut. So this is the society. So here with a simple story, and he wants to say this also through this. So he closet, the word is used here. Before the teacher comes, we will put her in the closet. We will shut her in the closet. No, said Margaret, falling back. She didn't want this will happen to her, because the whole class is one side and she is alone. So they are going to push her in a closet and shut her in the closet. So she was afraid of that action, and she shouted that no, no. They surged about her, caught her up and bore her, protesting and then pleading and then crying, back into a tunnel, a room, a closet, where they slammed and locked the door. So very wildly they all together behaved. They pulled her and pushed her and dragged her and took her to the other room. There they put her in the closet and slammed with heavy, um, they heavily they shut the door and locked that door. They stood looking at the door and saw it tremble from her beating and throwing herself against it. So she was trembling and throwing herself against the door, and she wants the door to be opened, but they were seeing it, but they were not. They heard her muffled cries. So muffled means slowly that cries was soft. Then, smiling, they turned and went out and back down the tunnel just as the teacher arrived. So, after her voice gone down, muffled, slowed down, then they moved, smiled at each other, and they moved. They did a great thing, they thought. And when they moved to the room, their room, to the tunnel, there the teacher reached, and she asked the children, ready children? She glanced at her watch. Yes, said everyone. They were waiting for that time. Are we all here? And she checked whether all the children are here. So they said, yes. The rain slacked still more. Now the rain slowly stopping, and they crowded to the huge door. So they are ready to go out. They are waiting at the door. The rain stopped. At last, the rain stopped. It was as if the midst of a film concerning an avalanche, a tornado, a hurricane, a volcanic eruption, something had first gone wrong with the sound apparatus, thus muffling and finally cutting off all noise, all of the blast and repercussions and thunders, and then second ripped the film from the projector and inserted in its place a beautiful tropical slide which did not move or tremor. So here he is giving a long sentence, the longest sentence in the story, and he wants to say that with all the sound till today they heard, and that the change, complete change. So every noise, every tremor, and everything was stopped, as if it is in the projector when they show the film, one side to other side, the slide when they change, how it changes. So that example is the world ground to a standstill. So the ground which was in drops of water and running water and everything is now stand still. The silence was so immense, so deep silence and unbelievable that you felt your ears had been stuffed or you had lost your hearing altogether. Till today, the children were hearing the continuous noise. and pouring of water and the gushing of water and roaring of the thunder, all this stopped as if they become deaf. Nothing they could hear. So the rain completely stopped. The children put their hands to their ears. They thought that our ears are become deaf or what, something is stuck in. So they were just they stood apart, and the doors slid back, and the smell of the silent waiting world came into them. So the door opened, and they are just going out. The sun came out, so they could see the sun there. It was the color of flaming bronze, and it was very large. So big, large flame of the sun, and the color when the bronze flame comes, not that yellowish color. And the sky around it was a blazing blue, the color. So the sky is clear blue in color, and the jungle burned with sunlight. So the whole jungle is burning with sunlight as the children, released from their spell, rushed out yelling into the springtime. It was so bright, and they were going out in the sun and yelling, shouting and rushing, and it's like a springtime. Now, don't go far. So the teacher said, call the teacher after them. You have only 2 hours. You can go in the jungle, 2 hours you can spend. So after 2 hours, the sun will disappear. You know, you wouldn't want to get caught out. So the rain will start and you will be caught in that. So it's better spend time only 2 hours. You are having only 2 hours to spend. But they were running and turning their faces up to the sky and feeling the sun of their cheeks like a warm iron. They were taking off their jackets and letting the sun burn their arms. So children are so happy. They were running here and there and removing their jackets and showing their hands in the sun and warming up their body. Like that, they were enjoying. Oh, it's better than the sun lamps, isn't it? So they were feeling the warmth. The natural warmth is better than that lamp which they get. Much, much better. So each of them are expressing their joy. They stopped running and stood in the great jungle that covered Venus. So they were standing there, and they stopped running and standing and watching the things in the jungle that grew and never stopped growing. The jungle was growing and growing, and even as you watched it, it was a nest of octopi clustering up great arms of flesh like weed, wavering, flowering in this brief spring, like springtime is very short spring, but everything is blooming, and it was the color of rubber and the ash, this jungle, and from the many years without sun. So the jungle was in a dull color, and it was the color of stones and white cheeses and ink, and it was the color of the moon. The children lay out laughing on the jungle mattress. So jungle mattress means on the grass, and heard it shy and squeak under them. So when they were the jungle, they were walking and running and standing and watching, they could hear the squeak and small noise of that resilient and alive. So they are all coming to alive. They ran among the trees, they slipped and fell. So they were playing sleep, like they were sleeping, and that means walking, and they are running and playing and falling and rolling, and they were enjoying. And they slipped and fell, they pushed each other, they played hide and seek and tag. So name, hide and seek, and tagging, but most of all they squinted at the sun until the tears ran down their faces. They were just looking at the sun, till until the tears comes down. They put their hands up to the yellowness and the amazing blueness, and they breathed of the fresh air, and listen to the silence which suspended them in a blessed sea of no sound and no motion. Like they were enjoying the silence, and they were enjoying the sun, color of the sun, the brightness of the sun, and the warmth of the sun. They looked at everything and savored everything. They were tasting everything. Then, wildly, like animals escaped from their caves, they were behaving as if the animals which are kept in the caves, their caves came out. They ran and ran in shouting circles. They were roaming and playing and making circle round and round and round. They are playing. They ran for an hour and did not stop running. Continuously, they were running for an hour and they were not stopping. They were in full mood. And then, in the midst of their running, one of the girls wailed. One of the girls started shouting, "What? Wail!" And what she saw, everyone stopped when she wailed. The girl standing in the open held out her hand. "Oh, look, look," she said, trembling. So she stretched out her hand and she was trembling. "Oh, what happened?" They came slowly to look at her open palm. They all came near to her and looking at her palm. In the center of it, in her center of the cup, like this way, she was holding her hands, and was a single raindrop, a huge single raindrop on her palm. She began to cry looking at it. So she started crying looking at the raindrop. They glanced quietly at the sun. So then they were quietly looking at the sun with sad mood. Oh, the sun is going to disappear. A new few cold drops started falling, fell on their noses and their cheeks, and their mouths started raining. The sun faded behind a stare of mist and faded. The sunlight went out. A wind blew cold around them. They turned and started to walk back toward the underground house. So they have to go to the tunnel now. Their hands at their sides, their smiles vanishing away. So all the joy vanished. A boom of thunder. So the thunder started. And then, like leaves before a new hurricane, they tumbled upon each other and ran. So they started running towards the tunnel. Lightning struck 10 miles away. So 10 miles away, the lightning struck the ground. 5 miles away, a mile, a half mile. So the lightning is coming closer and closer. The sky darkened into midnight in a flash, like as if it is like midnight. The sky became dark, no sun. They stood in the doorway of the underground for a moment until it was raining hard. They didn't want to go into the tunnel door. They were just waiting and watching till it is raining very hard. Then they closed the door and heard the gigantic sound of the rain falling in tons and avalanches everywhere and forever. Then the rain started. It will go till 7 more years. So will it be 7 more years? Yes, seven. So they last. 7 more years they have to hear the same sound. And then one of them gave a little cry. So after coming to the tunnel, one girl started crying. "Margot!" She remembered Margot that time. "What?" "She is still in the closet where we locked her." Margot, that girl's shocked to think that we shut her and we forgot to open the door when we were going out to see the sun. She shouted. They stood as if someone had driven them like so many stakes into the floor, as if they were being buried. They were shocked and stood. They looked at each other and then looked away. So each other, look at each other, the glance out of the world that was raining now and raining steadily. They were looking out. They could not meet each other's glances. So they were not able to meet each other glances. Their faces were solemn and pale. They looked at their hands and feet, their faces down. So they were looking down and looking at their hands and feet, and their faces were completely that they were regretting for their action. Margot, one of the girls said, well, no one moved. Go on, whispered the girl. So they walked slowly. Come on, she called. So all of them were walking slowly down the hill in the sound of cold rain. They turned through the doorway to the room in the sound of the storm and thunder lighting on their faces, blue and terrible. So they were going to that closet, where the room where the closet was there. They walked over to the closet door slowly and stood by it. Behind the closet door was only silence, no noise of Margaret. They unlocked the door even more slowly and let Margaret out. So they behaved in such a way that, and they felt sorry for their actions. Here, one thing we can understand the theme of the story. The writer wants to say that how the lack of sunlight makes the people frail and weak and pale outwardly and also inwardly. So, because of the lack of light, the darkened mind of the children, evil mind of the children, made them to react differently with the girl Margaret. It is because of their lack of understanding, and the lack of light in Venus made the children hold that lack of understanding. And once when they went out and got the sun, they have got the light. So the importance of light on this earth. So how sun is not only give life to the animals and plants, in human also, the inhuman activities because of lack of light. And light is important for a good behavior. So the theme of the story, he has brought it out very nicely with the imaginary story of all summer a day. So this is the end of the story. All Summer in a Day by Ray Bradbury. So go through the whole lesson. The text is very important. You should understand the text words so that you can answer the extract questions. So we'll see the other poem in the next class.